It's rare, but there are times that I will read a report from a reliable tech tipster, and when I read it, I just can hardly believe what I'm reading. This is one of those instances. We're talking about the Galaxy Z Fold 7 once again, delving into how thick this device is going to be. And trust me when I tell you, you are going to be very surprised, and many of you are probably not going to believe what is now being reported. Let me quickly give you a little bit of context. Just a few days ago, or I guess it's been a little over a week ago now, Ice Universe posted on Weibo the following. The thickness of the Galaxy Z Fold 7 is thinner than the previous transmission. I have the official accurate data. It's going to be sent out at the right time. So basically, it's thinner than it's been reported. I'm going to let you guys know when the time is right. This person down here asked a very pertinent question that I'm going to translate differently because this is, I believe, incorrect. They asked, is it 8.2 thick? Now, this is referencing a very dubious report from a Greek tech blog called Tech Maniacs, if I'm remembering correctly. They said it was going to be 8.2 millimeters thick, which would be insane. The Oppo Find N5 is 8.9 millimeters thick when closed. So they said this thing was going to be 8.2. That is an insane figure. If true, and of course Ice Universe said no, it is thicker than this. So basically what he was saying was it's thinner than we had previously thought, which probably came from that Android Headlines article, but it's not 8.2 millimeters thick. Okay, today, about 2 o'clock in the morning, he tweeted this. We'll skip ahead through some of the stuff that doesn't matter. The Galaxy Z Fold 7 will be the thinnest folding machine in the world at that time. 3.9 millimeters when unfolded, 8.9 after folding, with a battery of 4,400 milliamp hours. Let me read you that again. 3.9 millimeters when open. The Oppo Find N5 is 4.2 millimeters. They have shaved off a significant amount from the thickness of the Oppo Find N5. Again, according to this leak, the Z Fold 7 will be the thinnest folding phone on planet Earth. So immediately, I have a rush of about 5 or 6 different things that we need to talk about, different thoughts. So the first thing we'll come back to, is it actually the thinnest folding phone on planet Earth? We'll come back to that here in just a minute because I think it's actually important to look at the other device that could potentially make a claim to that crown. But first off, this is Ice Universe, okay? They are a very reputable tech leaker, in particular when it comes to Samsung. If this was coming from another Greek tech blog, I would say dismiss it. But this is coming from someone who typically gets this stuff right. The next thought actually goes back to a video that I just posted talking about how the battery of the Fold 7 is going to be still 4,400 milliamp hours. I said in that video that Samsung continues to fall behind on battery tech. But if we read a little bit further, he says, yes, 4,400 milliamp hours. It is expected that the new battery and charging technology will be adopted. Now look, let's be totally honest here. The Find N5 has a 5,600 milliamp hour battery because they are using silicon carbon batteries, and that makes a really, really big difference. But to maintain 4,400 milliamp hours while going from, let's just pull up the dimensions, from 5.6 millimeters thick when opened down to 3.9 millimeters thick when open. That is going to require some significant engineering, if not a new battery technology of some kind. Now, he does not describe what this new battery and charging technology is, but something is going on there. They're stopping short of going to silicon carbon, which I believe they will do relatively soon. Maybe the Z Fold 8, the battery capacity jumps up significantly. But something has happened here, okay? So charging when you're that thin generates heat. If you're going to stick with, 25-watt charging, you do have to do something for your battery to be able to handle the heat that it's going to be generating, because when you're that thin, there's less material to dissipate that heat into. We know what some Chinese OEMs have done. Samsung's not doing that, but they clearly are doing something. There will be a contingent of people watching and commenting on this video, and honestly, I'm right there with you, who might say, why go to 3.9 millimeters? Why not be 4.5 millimeters? That's still very, very thin enough to feel like a normal phone in your hand for most people, and then use this new battery technology to have a larger battery. Maybe you could be 4.5 millimeters thick and have closer to a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Isn't that like a good, happy medium where you're getting sort of the best of both worlds? If you go down to 3.9 millimeters, are you going to start to negatively impact those speakers like we saw with the Find N5? How does this impact the cameras? We've heard that they're using that 200 megapixel sensor. We assume that that is going to remain true, but that's quite the engineering feat to be able to pull something like that off, although it's not a physically huge sensor, so maybe that's why that's happened. But in the future, is that going to mean that a true periscope telephoto zoom like we have on devices like this might not be possible? These are all, I think, very valid questions. Have they gone too far chasing thinness and potentially sacrificed other things and maybe things in the future? I think it might also be really interesting to take a look at the Huawei Mate XT Ultimate. This is a trifold or dual-hinged multi-fold device from Huawei. And if you look at its dimensions here, it's listed as being either 3.6 millimeters at the smallest or 4.8 millimeters at its thickest. So that would actually make it a little bit thinner than what we're talking about here. Looking at this image from ITC UA, this is the Mate XT next to the Z Fold 6, and as you can see, they are almost the same thickness, despite the fact that Huawei's device folds over an extra time. It's absolutely insane. But if we look at this USB-C port, I think that's kind of the important area, because as you can see, there's really no room on either side, top or bottom, of that USB-C port, because we're pushing that thickness so incredibly far. Very similarly to the Oppo Find N5, where there's just not a lot of room around that USB-C port. But if this is truly 3.6 millimeters, that does leave room for this to be possibly true. Look how much space there is. I can almost fit my entire magnification thing on either side of that USB-C port on the Z Fold 6, whereas over here there's really not a whole lot of room at all. And I guess it's also fair to point out that they did somehow still manage to fit in a 5.5x periscope telephoto zoom at 3.6 millimeters, although that camera bump does stick out pretty doggone far. If you look at that there, that thing is coming out a very, very large distance, and maybe that's what Samsung will have to do in the future if they do decide to go that route. And frankly, I would expect the camera module now with that 200 megapixel sensor to stick out pretty darn far. This is what I want to leave you guys with on this video. Back in October of 2024, on Samsung's newsroom, they posted this. This is translated from Korean over to English. They admitted to their customers, investors, and employees that they were in the midst of something that they literally described as a crisis. They promised to restore the fundamental competitiveness of their technology, basically saying, we've been lazy, we've not pushed things hard enough, and we are going to right this ship, or we're going to get back to being the Samsung of old that pushes boundaries. Of course, things like this do take time. The S25 series of devices came out, if I'm not mistaken. They came out next after this announcement. And of course, not a whole lot of crazy things had happened, but those devices had been in the works already. I said in a video not that long ago that the Z Fold 7 would really be the device to tell us if they were being serious with this statement or if that was just marketing speak. In my opinion, if this is real, if they truly deliver the thinnest foldable device, book-style foldable device around, because like I alluded to earlier, Huawei's Mate XT does actually exist and it is a bit thinner, if they truly deliver a 3.9 millimeter thick Z Fold 7, despite the fact that the battery maybe should be a little bit bigger, I think that you could say that they have at least restored some of the fundamental competitiveness of their technology. They have at least made a real attempt to not be iterative and just release the same Z Fold over and over again. We're talking about a device with a wider cover display. Finally, it's a larger screen on the inside and outside, and apparently the thinnest around. This is going to be something that Samsung is going to hang their hat on and say, look what we did. We made the thinnest foldable. Hooray us. I think this is evidence of at least them attempting to do what they said they were going to do. Now, we're going to have our complaints about it, I'm sure, but I just wanted to kind of leave you guys with that. I'm sure there's going to be lots of opinions varying in the comments down below. Make sure to drop yours down there as well. Subscribe for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.